Hello and welcome to What Goes Around. And my name is Eamon Murtaugh this week.
My name's Deb Grant this week.
And on this week's show, we will be talking about Deb's move to the metropolis of Manchester and the ensuing job shenanigans she has found at Six Music. But we will also be talking about punk rock, both here and in the USA.
On the show this week, we also have a chat with Kate Stables from the brilliant band This Is The Kit.
So there you go, What Goes Around this week features punk and it features folk. That's the kind of balanced diet we like right here on the show. Shall we pod? I think we should pod. And I think we should pod right now.
DJ Deb Grant, traveller of the airwaves. What goes around?
Well, I don't know if you know this, Eamon, but I actually did it. I did the thing that I talked about on the podcast long ago, and I moved to Manchester. Been in Manchester for a few months now. That's my main big news, except for a small new job that I started quite recently too.
I had heard something. It's just like a everyday thing, isn't it?
It's only 4 days a week, actually, but yeah.
Is it only 4? Well,
only 4.
They've
You
got
should
a long
know
way
that.
to go yet.
Are you for real?
No, I do know that. Of course I
Better.
know. I tune in regularly. I mean, I actually do. This is the weird thing. Is like, you've always been on the radio and doing stuff. Like, occasionally hear a little bit. But I have actually tuned in and listened.
It's a good show.
there you go. It is. Lots of good new music. I enjoy it very much. How are you finding it?
I'm loving it. I mean, it's a dream. It feels like quite a mantle of responsibility to be introducing new music to a station like BBC Six. Like, you know, I have to kind of spend a lot of time going through music that people send me, music that I find online, going to gigs, etc. It feels like quite a big responsibility. And then, of course, there's all the energy I have to save up to argue with Tom about what he likes versus what I like. And, you know, that's all part of it as well. But yeah, it's great.
I imagine it must be quite dizzying, just because, like, you're 4 nights a week, all new stuff.
Yeah,
your ears must be burning off the hook. You know?
I think it's kind of. I mean, the thing that I'm interested in most with new music, or with any music really, is like something that stands out and surprises me and is a bit different and kind of is in contrast to the rest of the stuff that I'm hearing. So the fact that that's what I'm listening out for kind of helps to keep things fresh. But just the excitement as well of doing it. It'll take a long time before I get jaded and my ears get tired. So it's kind of good for me too, because it's kind of put me in a position where I'm obliged to listen to different music. I mean, my background, as you know, is like finding weird old crusty music. So the fact that I'm now in a position of having to listen out for exclusively new stuff is quite cool.
Yeah, I can just imagine the sort of clunky gear shift that's gone on in Grant's brain.
Thanks a lot.
Well, no, but you were a scourer of the archives before,
Yeah.
and that's a very different thing because, essentially, if you're looking back, then the only thing you've got to worry about is time. So as long as it's happened, you can go find it. But when you're looking for brand new things, it's about time, but it's also about timing. You've got to strike while that iron is hot and find those things just while they're still wriggling in the tin.
True. And I think, I don't know if it's a curse or a blessing, but I think when you have an internal archive of older music, you can get into such a rut of hearing something new and being like, well, this sounds like this mixed with that with a touch of this. And like, I'm trying very hard not to do that, because oftentimes you think that, but actually, they might not be influences that the artist has at all. So yes, it's keeping me fresh, Eamon. It's keeping me young. So that has to be a good thing.
That has to be a good thing.
Yeah.
I'll have some of that. Yeah, that whole thing of sort of trying to find something new as well, that can be quite a dizzying prospect, because I mean, you must be being, you must have like a pile. This is the thing. Back in the day, you'd have had a desk like Columbo's with like loads and tons of CDs and tapes and stuff.
Yeah.
But now, I guess your pile is just your inbox.
Yeah, I mean, I do get sent a lot of records, which is,
A dream.
Who is it we were speaking to? DJ Jaguar Scales was saying he just got into DJing for the free records. So yeah, now more than ever I'm benefiting from that, which is really nice. But Yeah, I mean, it is mostly email based. But then again, I mean, Manchester is fucking great. I was quite nervous, although...
See, I told you you'd like it, didn't I?
Yeah, but it was more, you know, I've been in London for 20 years, so like leaving behind everyone I knew and loved to move to this new city, it just was very daunting. And in my mind, I was thinking like, well, London gets the best of everything, so that means Manchester is going to be second best. What I didn't account for is the fact that, you know, London just makes everything so difficult for you. Like, I would hardly ever be arsed going to gigs in London because of the journey there and the journey back and all of the, you know, obstacles and public transport and annoying people and all the rest of it. In Manchester, I've been to probably more gigs in the couple of months I've been in Manchester than I went to in London in the whole of the last few years, because I can walk home from everything. Everything is so accessible. It's like you walk past a music venue and you're like, that's for me. I could go in there anytime I wanted, you know. So, yeah.
I imagine they saw you coming up the motorway and said, she's here, lads, put the sign above the door. Welcome, DJ Deb Graham, this is for you.
I don't know. It's funny, there's 2 record stores in the middle of town, great record stores. Actually, Manchester has some excellent record stores,
yeah.
But there's 2 here that only ever play 6 music when I walk in there, and so I kind of walk in and I'm like, nobody has said anything to me yet. Maybe it's because the hours of the show are antisocial, or maybe it's because I need to earn my status.
Maybe you're just too cool for school. Maybe they're just shh, don't say anything.
Well.
Here comes the great DJ Deb.
Yeah, that could be it as well. But yeah, who knows? But I've been loving it. Manchester, I would recommend it. But I don't want, you know, everyone to catch on to it, because then the property prices will go up.
Yeah, keep it a secret, I would, because, you know, if you have something good going on, you want to just keep a lid on that.
Yeah, but I do have one issue now. My lovely boyfriend came over from New Zealand to help me move, and unfortunately he had to go. But well, unfortunately, I mean, you know, he's only allowed to stay in the country for a few months, so he had to go back, and so it meant I had to keep the task of trying to make friends kind of on the long finger. And now he's gone and I have no friends. So yeah, I don't know, how should I make friends? What you've moved to a new city recently, what's your approach? I guess you have a kid, so you can just, you know,
but
you've got a whole pool of dads that you've got access to.
But honestly, that's just a nightmare, if I'm honest. Yeah.
Are there no dads?
Some of them are great, some of them are fantastic, but a lot of the time when you have kids, you just end up in situations that you share through this commonality of having kids, but really you don't have that much in common.
Yeah.
And also it's a little bit, you have to be very guarded, because, you know, I've lived a fun life, shall we say, and I often, sort of in the past, the circles I've moved in, so has everyone else.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And now I'm moving in circles where you're like, what do you do? Oh, I'm a lawyer for Lloyd's. I don't suppose you went raving, did you? Some of them did, I have to say.
Yeah. Well, you know, I guess those are the ones you can seek out.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. Moving to a new city is really hard. I found it very, very difficult. And I have to give a hat tip to my friends Tim and Ben, who took me out early on. A friend of mine on Facebook said, when you get down there, say hello to this person, and he kind of linked us up. And so we did, we went out. And it's so nice. The first weekend we were out, Ben said to me, like, you found it hard, you know, making friends and all that. So I was like, well, you know, to be honest, yes. Because, you know, I'm not 20. I can't just go down the pub and get smashed for 6 days and come out with friends, which is what you used to be able to do. And he, really lovely, he just said, well, look, I know what it's like. I did this like 8 years ago. You've got a friend now. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? From a big, roughy, tufty old bear of a man.
Where's my roughy, tufty old bear?
I'm here, darling.
Yeah, well, move to Manchester and then we'll talk.
Okay, well, I will consider that. I did do my time in Manchester, and I always said I would come back when I had money to spend, because I was so poor in Manchester.
Yeah.
You did all right, though.
No comment. I mean, I do have access to you know, I can get to gigs. There's various events and stuff that I can go to. I just need a plus one. I need a pal.
Yeah, I tell you what it is, and it's the one thing you can't really buy. It's time, isn't it? You have to just show your face up and and just be on the scene. Is that great? I don't know if you ever saw it. There's this musician once had to fill in for someone in Thelonious Monk's band.
Oh yeah.
And he went to the rehearsal and he was really nervous, and so he's writing notes on everything that Thelonious was saying, before the gig and all that sort of stuff. And it turned out to be this like A4 sheet of wisdom from the jazz man himself, But one of the things he said, I can't. When I read it, I imagine he had a gravelly voice, kind of Miles Davis. But it was like, never ask for a gig, just be on the scene. I love that.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
So as long as you're on the scene, you're going to gigs, just keep yourself busy. The friends will follow.
Okay.
But now all of our Manchester posse, and I'm sure we've got a huge amount of Manchester scallies on the WGA list. They'll all be after you.
Yeah, well, I'm here, guys. I'm here and I'm bored.
Okay, that's good. Well, if you're in the Manchester area, please go and entertain Deb. She's got 3 days a week to kill.
Eamon murder. Between the sawing and the hammering and the coughing and the nose blowing, please tell me what goes around.
Well, I'm going to go back to my roots, where I started, which is just sitting in a dark room on my own watching music documentaries relentlessly. Oh, the reason I bring this one up is because I watched 2 documentaries and they're beautiful sides of the same coin, they're just watching them back to back made me laugh like a drain because of the differences in the 2 of them. So I'm going hardcore, I'm going punk. The first one I watched shows the American side of things, and it was called The Godfathers of Hardcore, and it was all about Agnostic Front. Are you familiar with their canon?
Yes.
Yeah. So Agnostic Front, basically, as the name suggests, the Godfathers of hardcore punk in America. The guy, the main sort of guitarist in it, this guy called Vinny Stigma, which is also a fantastic name.
That.
He's brilliant. He's like this hard-boiled New York punk who just, everything's like, what? What are you looking at? Let's move through. I gotta do stuff. Hey, I got some punk rock to play. And they keep saying punk rock, and that always makes me laugh. It's like in England, you never say punk rock.
No.
It's punk. It's punk, mate.
Yeah.
It's punk rock over there. Agnostic Front was the name. He was saying it's not about being, anti-religious. Is that agnostic as in we're not going to believe anything we're told until we get up and see it, and we're going to question everything that's told. And so the whole thing about the band is they just, whatever subject that comes up, they face it head on and they question it, and they don't get spoon-fed anything. Now, the average life expectancy of a punk band in 1978 was probably slightly longer than a mayfly.
Yeah.
Maybe 6 months is a good stint for a punk band. Unbelievably, Agnostic Front are still touring.
Wow.
Yeah, they're in their 60s and they're still doing the shit. And there's footage of the shows. They have not let up. Vinny Stigma is not a guy to just take a back seat and say, "Well, let's do some nice acoustic numbers."
Yeah.
So they are still rocking out, and they're brilliant. And the footage is amazing because also they kind of come to their prominence in the 80s, really. So there's loads of that early camcorder footage.
Oh, love
of these
that in a
incredible
documentary.
punk gigs. Yeah, people just throwing themselves off balconies to stage dive, and just beautiful, violent, crazy music. But it also had this thing where they sort of had something to say. Now, what they had to say was just don't fucking trust anyone, really, which is a very punk kind of anarchy attitude. But they said it with real conviction, and they kept it going. And Vinny, it seems to me, would just die on the tour bus. He's totally happy. Roger Miret, who's like the vocalist, he became the full-time vocalist after a little while. He is still with the band. They're still going. He finds it much harder to keep going. He misses his kids and his wife. And so there's this beautiful pivot in the film where it goes from just like, I'm a punk and I love fucking everything, yeah, and we keep going. And then there's this bit where it's like, but we got old and I had kids and no, I miss my
Oh,
kids
no.
anyway. But there's still, you know, there's just, I don't know. He makes the sacrifice. Do you know what I mean? He goes over the line and really puts himself on the line every night on the concert. And it's obviously really killing him, but he is not stopping because he and his mate Vinny are in this band and they are in it for life.
Yeah, they got something to say.
Honestly, it made me swell up with pride. I was just thinking, yeah, God, I want to be like that and just never give up and always do your best, you know? Anyway.
It's so punk rock. Never give up and always do your best.
Do your best.
That's what I learned from this punk rock documentary.
And by the way, have you got any more glue? Well, let me just flip the coin now, because the coin lands the other side. We now find ourselves in Tunbridge Wells, where punk is just beginning to like take a hold. And Royal Tunbridge Wells, unknown to the good citizens of it, gave birth to one of Britain's seminal punk bands, the Anti-Nowhere League. Yeah, now if you know, the Anti-Nowhere League came to prominence when they recorded a punk version of Streets of London by Ralph McTell, which in itself is quite a bold move for a punk band, but they kind of just thrashed it out. I think they don't even play all the chords in the song because they couldn't quite manage it. Well, they get together and they just make this awful row and do this terrible cover version of Streets of London. And on the B-side, they do a really notorious track called So What. Have you heard So What?
No, I'm not that familiar with this band.
Anti-Nowhere League. Well, it was banned everywhere because the lyrics are just ridiculous. Like, so what, so fucking what? It makes some references to doing terrible things to a goat and then says, so what? And basically just, so what? Fuck you. We're the fucking Anti-Nowhere League. You know, and they put this single out, Streets of London one side, So What on the other. And it sells out. It goes mental. And suddenly they find themselves like in the punk world. But they then started touring with The Damned. And they're so English. And they are the epitome of, this sounds cruel, but the dumb punk. You know, the real punk in a way, which is just like, you know, we're not really saying anything. So what? We don't fucking care. Let's smash things up. Bollocks.
Yeah.
You know, there was nothing erudite or interesting said throughout the whole documentary by these guys. They were just like, whatever, let's do it. And the contrast with Agnostic Front, who just seemed to have this sort of militant belief that they were doing something important. The Anti-Nowhere League were just like, oh, this is a laugh, isn't it? And there's a point where Rat Scabies from The Damned, he is talking about having them on tour, and they were just vile.
I love that though. I love that.
I think if you are getting called vile by a man called Rat Scabies, who is in a band called The Damned, you have gone too far.
Yeah. That's impressive though. They're living it.
There's a point where Rat Scabies says, I don't think you could do anything to shock me. Now, I'm not going to spoil the surprise, but what they do next to shock him fucking shocked him.
Wow. Gotta watch it now. What's the documentary called?
You gotta watch it. So the documentary is called We Are the League, the Anti-Nowhere League. It's brilliant. Really, I mean, just kind of funny, kind of horrible. And they don't make any money. They're punk legends. And then they think, fuck. They kind of get, you know, when the bright lights catch someone's eye and they just go, oh, maybe we're not really that wedded to punk. Maybe we should just go sell out a bit and do some big rock and roll and make some money. Yeah. So they try and do this acceptable hard rock. Oh God, it's so bad. Just so
Do they acknowledge that it's bad?
Yeah, they you can see them cringing as they're talking about it, but they're kind of like, oh, we just suddenly thought we might make some money, it'd be really good, and it was awful, really excruciating to watch. And then they're absolutely knocked out and they're looking at each other and they know they're on the uppers, so they're kind of splitting up the band and nothing happens for a while. And Metallica show up, biggest band in the world, and play So What live in concert. And suddenly there is money. because they've got they've got the rights to that song, and then they're getting Animal up on stage to sing with them, and so the League are born again, and they rise again and start touring again, and it's just as fucking awful.
And the moral is, what did you say about it? Never give up.
No moral. No, they should have given up, to be quite honest. But I think if ever there was a band or a story that had no moral, it was the Anti-Nowhere League.
Sounds right up my street.
I heartily recommend it, and I do encourage all our listeners to do it as a double bill. I don't care which order you watch it in, but honestly, when you start looking at the two sides of punk, there's something special that happens when those two movies come together. So get yourself on that. So what?
What we're gonna do right here is go back.
Way back into time.
That's right.
Name that tune. Name that tune.
Kate Stables is the singer-songwriter behind the brilliant indie folk band This Is the Kit. This group have gone about their business with a quiet determination and style over the years. They've won plaudits from the likes of Guy Garvey, Mark Radcliffe, Cerys Matthews and Mary Ann Hobbs. And their sixth album, Careful of Your Keepers, is out this month on Rough Trade Records. Kate has assembled a wonderfully layered back catalogue showcasing an ear for melody and a lyrical prowess. So we're delighted to have Kate here to share her phonographic memories on what goes around. Good morning, Kate, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's lovely to have you here, and I'm really excited to speak to you now because I was listening to the new album and really enjoying that.
Thank you.
I'm sure you've had a busy time running around and promoting it and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's been busy but very fun.
I was thinking, you have now had 20 years as This Is the Kid.
Yeah,
is that right?
it's true,
That's this
it's
year,
true.
isn't it?
I guess so. I don't know if there's an official year because I feel like I sort of started selling CDRs at gigs at some point, at some date unknown to the history books. But yeah, exactly, pretty much 20 years.
That's a good innings, I'd say. And it's great the way, I love when bands kind of creep up on you, and I don't think you've ever had the behemoth of, Universal Music pushing you everywhere and getting you on Saturday morning TV or anything like that. So you've done the hard yards, do you know what I mean? You've continually worked and kept it going and carved out your niche, and it's great to see it coming to fruition.
I think it is a funny one. It just makes me think of just like, I don't know, it's been an interesting journey because I feel like there's definitely been times when we'd been going too long for anyone to treat us like a new band, and we were too unknown for anyone to treat us like an established band. So I remember sort of found ourselves in this strange sort of limbo land for a few years. But now we're well and truly a sort of band that's been going for ages. So it's easier now. Yeah,
I would say you're well established. I mean, I have a personal story of how I found you, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on, because it's one of the most serendipitous moments of my DJing career. I was DJing at a festival, and I was finishing up my set, and it was all very nice, just like nice Sunday afternoon, and the sun was just going down, it was beautiful, and played my last record, bent down to start packing up my bags, and then I heard a pluck of a banjo, and I lifted my head above the decks and realised that your band had just set up really quietly and really quickly in front of me and all around me. And you started singing this beautiful music, really tender, quiet little songs. And I thought, well, I can't bundle through there with 2 bags of records now.
Oh no, we trapped you in.
Yeah, you locked us in.
I'm so sorry.
But it was lovely because I had no idea who you were or anything. I'd never seen or heard of you before. And then I was just in that brilliant position. So often you get given music and you're trying to find a time to sit down and properly listen. Do you know what I mean? And you're life's busy and you've got things to do and yada yada. Well, the glorious thing about this was that I couldn't go anywhere, so I had to sit quietly behind the decks.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
So I sat there quietly, listened to the whole set, and loved it. It was so good. I had such a nice time. And I think I ended up swapping a couple of my mix CDs with your drummer. For,
great, Jamie.
Yeah,
Jamie
Krug Bowl and another album. I think we swapped those over,
great.
and I gave him a couple of mix CDs. But it was such a nice way to find new music, and so nice to start off on that footing where you really listen and there's no distractions at all. And that, do you struggle to find places to to listen to music nowadays yourself? Can you find the time and space in order to take in new stuff, or are you just sort of constantly busy doing your own thing?
Yeah, I do struggle a little bit, but there are a few little times when I manage to listen to things, like travelling, I guess. So on trains and buses and in sort of tour vans, I just sort of get my headphones on and really enjoy properly listening to stuff. And also I guess there's the one sort of radio programme that I really try and make an effort to listen to and not just have on in the background is Late Junction, and I love just really listening to that, because also it's late at night, so you're sort of on the verge of sort of going to bed or whatever, so I just really like just that being the just listening, really careful listening to that. But other than that, it is hard to like carve in the time, especially when, like, I remember a time of my life when it was what I did all the time. I would put a record in my room and be listening to it really carefully while I did other stuff with my hands, but my mind and my ears were totally fully involved with the listening. So it's kind of it'd be nice to get more listening time in.
Well, I think that your particular brand of music as well is it's quiet and personal, and it does really benefit from not having distractions around you. You have this sort of ability to speak in a very simple way, and probably saying quite a lot of complex things in that. But how do you feel about the way your music is presented to people? I mean, is it something that you think about a lot in terms of how you get it out to people?
Well, in terms of accessibility, I don't know if I think about it very much. I'm quite sort of I'm quite an old-fashioned sort of simpleton. And like in my mind, it's
I shouldn't have agreed with that too readily. Sorry.
No, it's just like, for me, I just think gigs is how I get out to people, and if I'm lucky, then a little bit of radio as well. But I realise that in this day and age, it's actually a lot more about playlists, but also people sharing stuff between themselves on the internet and things. I mean, I don't know. Maybe people will be listening to me saying that and thinking, no, that's what happened 20 years ago. Now it's this new system.
Some other thing, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of people finding it, I guess people just do find it. But it's always nice to often people come up at gigs and tell the stories of how they discovered it, a bit like you getting trapped.
Yeah, exactly. I was kidnapped and forced to listen to you.
And forced to listen to it. So, and that's always nice, because people do come to music in different sort of serendipitous ways, and it's always nice to sort of hear how that happens. I don't think about it too much, I think, is the answer.
Probably best not to. So where did it all start for you? When did you first think about not just sort of listening to music, but actually making it yourself, and not even just like learning an instrument, but actually, I'm going to write a song, I'm going to write a piece of music?
Yeah, I guess it was when I was a teenager, sort of towards the end of secondary school. That's quite an intense time, isn't it, for most people, for listening to music, and for a lot of people, and it was definitely the case for me. It was just such a pleasure to be with your mates and to play the songs of your favourite bands that you loved together, like all taking turns listening to each other playing, songs or whatever. And it was really, I just have really strong memories of that. And then at some point, I guess it shifted to me exploring like the guitar and words and stuff, and making up songs, making my own songs. I guess the local sort of open mic night probably had a big part in that transition, because you sort of go there, you play songs that you've learned to play, and then you start sort of thinking, oh, maybe I should try and write a song. And that is what happened. I'd go and sing covers, and then at some point I started singing songs that I'd written.
What were the things that you first wrote about, and where does your inspiration come from now?
It's probably not a million miles different in terms of life observations, personal and external. But I guess as a teenager, I mean, the things, if I look back and think about the things I wrote about as a teenager, or even as or even in my sort of earlier sort of recordings and albums, I guess it's quite, the sort of imagery and the subject matter is quite gentle, I guess, and sort of and pretty personal, I guess. What I'm trying to think. I feel like I remember writing songs about, train journeys, and things like that. And I probably still do write songs about train journeys, but there's other stuff in there as well now. I guess my songwriting's got a bit more fractal and dense or something, a bit less first degree. Is that what I mean?
I guess, yeah.
But yeah, I guess that desire to sort of mess with words, play with words, and sort of explore things through words and music combined, sort of got me when I was a teenager, and then I never sort of decided, I want to do this for my job.
Yeah.
I just sort of quietly hoped that it would be a big part of my life, and got lucky. It ended up being a really big part of my life.
A bit more than luck, I'd say. But one thing I find when I listen to your lyrics, especially, is that there's two things really. Actually, there's quite a lot of nature in what you write. Do you know what I mean? The little vignettes of oily cormorant's wing, or just one line here, a line there, but you seem to be tapped into the natural world quite a lot.
Yeah, this is what people say. And recently someone asked me and said, how important is nature in your writing? And I was just like, well, not at all. What are you talking about? And then afterwards I sort of, I don't know, accidentally listened to some of my lyrics. And I was like, oh, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do that.
Sometimes you have to look outside to see what's going on. Don't you?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess it is, but I think the reason I didn't realise it is because I don't think I separate it from the other things. I feel like sort of urban nature and human nature is just as important for me to write about as what people call nature, what other people call nature. I mean, because it's all part of the same world for me. I think you're looking around and there's life forms and patterns that exist, and sometimes they're from machines, and sometimes they're from humans, and sometimes they're from different animals, and sometimes they're from plants. So yeah, I guess it's important, but it's part of it's part of the bigger
the whole experience,
life force. I guess it's not. I don't think of it as nature. I don't sort of crave for escaping the city or anything. I don't think.
I think the other thing that I always think of when I listen to your lyrics is that this isn't an insult, but there's a childlike quality to some of it, in that you can put things very, very simply and use what did I hear yesterday? Something like I think in one of the songs, it's not one I know very well, but I think I heard you say emotional buckaroo, which I just think is fantastic. I mean, it works so well as a metaphor, because we all know what you put the stuff on the little donkey and eventually it just kicks it all off. And emotional, but that just makes perfect sense to me. But it's so simple, and it is kind of childlike. It's there's an innocence to it, and I think I see a lot of that. Is it something that you're aware of, or again, is that just how it comes out of you, or do you try and keep things simple?
I don't try and keep things simple. I just go for the things I'm drawn to. So it's I guess I am drawn to things that sort of make me laugh or make me smile or something, or that I find funny. Yeah, so I guess a sort of nostalgic reference to a board game that I played as a child made me laugh, but at the same time it's sort of the stuff that is possibly a bit childlike is it's either sort of nostalgic indulgence on my part, or it's just the magic spells that come out of I guess children's minds or language that to me isn't even children's minds or language. It's just sort of humans. It's really, I guess in children you get a really strong sense of human essence and how humans behave and react and what we get drawn to, and then that gets a little bit confused as we learn different behaviours and different social stuff as we grow up. So I feel like there's something quite sort of essential in things that we might describe as being childlike, but for me they're sort of as relevant to adults as ever. So I'm sort of speaking really slowly because I'm trying to sort of think of examples of what I do and remember what I was thinking when I wrote them. But I can't think of any examples. But I think if that's this might be what you're talking about. I think.
Yeah, no, I think you've hit the nail on the head very well.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, but it's something that a lot of people lose, I guess, as they become more experienced and they write more stuff, and then it becomes more obfuscated by, I guess, growing up and the social pressures of the world and the normal way that you're expected to talk as an adult, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like language is so much fun. It's pointless to just use it in a way that you think you're supposed to and that everyone expects you to, as in sort of an essay write. This is what a poem looks like. This is what a song looks like. This is what a sentence looks like. And I'm not up for that. I want to have fun. I guess that's another thing, like the idea of play. People think that play is just for kids.
Yes.
But actually it's what humans do, and that's how we research things. That is work. Like industry, how we're industrious and how we spend our time, and how... I'm sorry about all the sirens outside.
It's a busy Paris morning.
It's a busy morning. Play is what humans do. We investigate, we find out. That's how we find out about science. That's how we find out about social stuff. It's how we learn. And so I feel like it needs a new name that doesn't make us just think of Lego.
Yeah, I totally get that. Because you do, adults obviously do find time to play, but they pretend they're not playing anymore, and it is what they're doing.
Or they either call it work, or they don't let themselves play because they don't think that it's valid or important enough. And basically it just is really important to do it. That's what keeps us sort of alive and healthy and finding out and learning. Absolutely.
And that music is a great way of letting your mind and ears play away anywhere you are. Do you know what I mean? So let's talk a little bit about your phonographic memories. You picked 3 great songs for us.
Yes.
And the first song you picked is by the Beta Band, and it's called Push It Out. And I had to listen to it. I mean, I know the song from before, but I haven't listened to it in a long time. And again, it's one of those ones where, like, it's stark and simple, and yet by the end of it, it's quite tense. It really envelops you. Tell us a little bit about it. Yeah,
it's amazing. I feel like maybe this is some. Again, it's hard to know whether something was in you, and so that's why you were drawn to it, or whether it sort of planted a seed in you, and then that's why you ended up getting so into repetition and like trancey stuff. But all the songs I went for, I'm afraid, ended up being just really strong sort of teenage memory ones. I should have tried to sort of do some samples from different times in my life, but these ones were just, I guess because it's such an intense time of music and listening and like absorption, it ended up being these ones. But yeah, Push It Out, the Beta Band. So my friend Sam introduced me to the Beta Band, and I particularly remember hearing this song for what I think was the first time up in his sister Bridget's room. So Rosie, he plays bass, and this is the kit. Like, she's the youngest of these 3 siblings. You've got Bridget, Sam and Rosie. And I remember just being with them all up in Bridget's room in the top of the house, listening to the Beta Band, and this track came on, and it blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. Like, the fact, I mean, I guess until then I'd been listening to a lot of radio and the charts and whatever, wafted my way. And the idea that you didn't have to follow those rules, and that you could just the songs all push out, but also just push the boundaries of what people are sort of comfortable listening to, or what you want to play for however long, and the effect that repetition has on you. Yeah. Like listening to it, but also playing it and saying it. I just loved it. Blew my mind, and it's just such a strong memory for me. I can remember the wall I was leaning up against. I can remember like where the stereo was. It was such a strong, important moment for me musically. And the Beta Band, I mean, everything they've done actually has kind of had that effect on me. I mean, especially the 3 EPs, just like what's possible in terms of experimenting and not following the rules and just making the music you want to make, and it being so beautiful and so witty and so sort of articulate. I loved it.
push it out. I push it all out. And push it out. I push it all out. I push it out. I push it all out. I push it out. I push it all out. Push it out. I push it all out. I push it out. I push it all out. I push it out. I push it all out. I push it out. I push it all out. I push it out. I push it all out. I push it out. I push it all out. I push it out. I push it all out. I push it out. I push it all out. I push it out. I push it all out. I push it out. Push it all out. Push it out. Push it all out.
Big time for me, the Beta Band.
Yeah, no, they are a fantastic band. I love them myself. I actually went to what turned out to be their final gig, and my train was delayed, and we got into the ground just as they said goodnight.
Oh wow, the final goodbye. What gig was that then?
It was actually when Morrissey, before we knew he was a goose-stepping weirdo.
Bit of a dodgy guy.
But it was Morrissey's kind of comeback gig after he did You Are the Quarry. He played at Manchester Cricket Ground.
Right, okay.
And
Manchester
the
Cricket.
New York Dolls and the Beta Band are supporting. And I think it was
Yeah.
the last time the Beta Band ever played together.
Oh,
And
wow.
literally just heard like 30 seconds. I was like, yes, we've... And then they said, good night.
Oh no, oh no.
But they do have this amazing quality of, they never really folled the expected way to make a song or an album, and those EPs,
yeah, or even to
especially-
make a career. Like
Yeah.
they just did it their own way.
Yeah,
And I feel like when they came up against, when they were sort of forced into situations of trying to do it other people's ways, that's when it got difficult and didn't work out for them, I think. Anyway, sorry, what were you saying?
yeah. Well, and agreeing totally. And sonically, they put you in a place that starts off comfortable a lot of the time, but ends up quite, claustrophobic feeling. And I think that Don't Push It Out track, when I was lying there listening to it this morning, it started off, so this is nice with the little hi-hat, just just tapping away. But by the end, it creeps up on you, and suddenly it's got you,
Before you know it, you're in a total push it out sort of intensity chamber.
But it's amazing how they do it with so little sound. So there's so
Yeah.
few things going on.
Yeah,
And,
it's really good.
and I do.
But at the same time, loads going on, like all the sort of dynamic sort of awareness that they've got for the different ingredients. I love it.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a few moments when I've listened to your stuff as well where you've had that sort of quiet intensity, and I think that's quite a hard thing to capture. Is it when you record stuff like that? I mean, is it very important the surroundings and the way you're? Do you spend a lot of time making sure you're in exactly the right kind of mood, or can you just walk into a studio and just bash it out?
For writing, I find it very hard to get enough time in a row. I need a long time of like solitude and concentration and just getting inside my head without sort of washing machine interruptions and things like that. But for recording, I feel like it's a bit easier to, I guess, studios, if you're recording in a studio, just sort of put you in the zone a little bit. You walk into a space and physically it's like your mind sort of changes gear into, okay, I'm in a studio now. And I feel like recording, it's easier, I think, to just sort of... Also, usually when I'm recording, personally, how I work is that the songs are already written when I go and record them. So it's just a question of sort of tapping into the song energy again and then concentrating, and then it can usually work.
Yeah,
But in terms of like writing, it takes me a lot of solitude and time on my own, and because I can't choose. Yeah, I guess for most people, it's sort of you can't wait until you feel like writing a song. You have to sort of be chipping away at it whenever you get the chance. Otherwise, it'll never get done.
Never get done.
Because like when usually you sort of feel like writing a song when you're least able to. So it's just I
suppose once you enter the studio, it feels like you've gone to work anyway. So there's a general brain shift in that way.
Yeah, there's a brain shift, and you're usually with it's just and it's nice. I like that. I do love being in the studio, and I guess it's for me. It's also it just feels like a gig. So it's the same thing that happens when you walk on stage. You sort of it's like, okay, this is it. This is what it's going to sound like when we start playing. Off we go. Like, and you just have to sort of live in that moment, which I feel like it does me a lot of good to have that sort of pure presence experience.
Well, you always manage to capture like a kind of rawness and an intimacy in all of the records you've made, and I really enjoyed that kind of. Again, I keep saying simple. I mean, I'm sure it's very difficult to make it like that. It probably takes loads of effort, but it's the because of the way the arrangements are done, for example. It never feels crowded, and it never feels too busy, and there's something lovely about that. It's got a very like someone's doing a personal demo for you feel. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I hope that is what most people feel, because that's what I'd like to be offering people.
Good stuff. Well, it brings us nicely onto PJ Harvey and Perfect Day Elise, because if ever there was an artist who keeps it raw and real, it's PJ Harvey. And for me, my favourite things she does are kind of like the demos where it.
Her demos are amazing.
Just
it's true,
badly recorded, mic in the corner of the room, but there's something about the intensity and the feeling that goes into those recordings that often trumps the final studio versions.
Yeah.
So tell us about Perfect Day Elise and why this one in particular stays with you.
Well, I guess PJ Harvey has been like a really strong and important sort of presence in my sort of musical enjoyment life, and this is the first song that made me kind of properly aware of her. Like I can't remember what year it was. Oh look, I can see the album right on the floor. I'm just gonna have a look.
Always good that she's got the album on hand right there.
It's just the CD pilot. I'm just next to the CD pilot. 1998. So I guess I was watching Later with Jules Holland, and like she was on and played this song, and it totally blew my socks off. Like it's just this brilliant sort of wall of sound and rhythm. Like what she does with rhythm is so brilliant and so often really complex, and you don't even realise how complicated it is until you sort of get lost in it. And I loved it, and because of hearing that song I then got into the album Is This Desire, and it's just been one of and it still is just my favourite PJ Harvey album. I just think it's so great, all the sort of just great sort of experimental sort of noises and the storytelling on it, and the sort of, and it's an album to me that I feel like a lot of her music does this, but this particular album really shows people, I don't know, it feels really folky, but for want of a better word, like the sort of the storytelling and the imagery. And I feel like her storytelling and imagery is like this in her other stuff too, but it was like this album that made me realise it. Like it's just it's really classic, kind of folk tales in a way, or I can't explain it. What's a better word? But it's just, it seems really timeless and kind of, I feel like she's using old stories, but also from new experiences, and I don't know, it just blew my mind, and I just think it's such an amazing album. The sounds on it, the frequencies, like the sort of, all the sort of rules they break with sort of bass frequencies and bass noises. It's just sort of gut-churningly amazing, and I sort of can't, I can't do anything else when this music is playing. I can only just completely listen to it and possibly sort of like dance around a bit.
Got lucky one time. Hit 'em with a girl room 509. She turned her back on him, facing the frame. So listen, Joe, don't you come here again. White sun scattered all over the sea. Could think of nothing but her name at least. God, is the sweat running down his back. The water soaked her blonde hair black.
I was going to say, when you mentioned the F word, folk.
Yes.
You know, we've talked about folk a few times on the podcast before, and one of the things we always say is you know, traditionally it was the news. It was how people told stories, you know, in different places
Exactly.
and how
It
things
just
are
means
recorded.
it literally means people.
Do you mind being termed folk? Do you find that restricts the way people look at you? Is it just because you have a banjo? Is that it?
Sometimes, yeah. I've got a banjo and I sing in an English accent, and so that means I get called folk. But also, I guess I was starting out at a time when there was a lot of songs and songwriting, and the word folk was getting applied to anyone who wrote songs, wrote and played songs. So, do I mind? Sometimes it's a little bit grating, actually, to be honest,
Yeah.
because the result is I get treated a certain way that I feel like I didn't ask for.
Yeah.
Like, I'll get, you know, a photographer will want to take pictures of me, and they'll be like, oh, can you stand next to these flowers? Can you hold these flowers? Can you, like, take your shoes off? Or can
you try and
sort
look
of,
twee, please.
can you let your hair down? And so I feel like, I don't know if that's because of being called a folk musician, or if it's because I'm a female, or because it's both.
Yeah.
But I do struggle with that side of it, because I guess... But I also, you know, as an artist, I have to remember and understand, and I do believe this, that people are going to interpret you and hear you and see you however they decide. Like,
Yeah.
so you can't control how people see you or hear you.
Yeah, indeed.
But
yeah.
and so it's a strange sort of balance between trying to allow that, but also to still have some sort of autonomy and say in how I'm represented anyway. There's the two things should somehow be able to both exist. But it's not always easy. But yeah, but in terms of the folk music, I mean, I don't think it. I guess it means that I get to play at a lot of folk festivals, which is nice. But on the other side, I don't know how many other music festivals have turned me down because they think I'm folk. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't see the negative sides of it. I just feel lucky for being able to do gigs.
Well, it's a funny thing because it's kind of like if someone won't call you by your name, do you know? I mean, they decide, oh, your name's Kate, but I'm going to call you Katie Wu or whatever. You know, it's like, well, I haven't asked for that really. And I know last month we had Jeff Barrow on the podcast from Portishead.
Oh, great! Okay,
and
good
had a good old chat with him. And it didn't come up at all in the conversation, but in the intro, just because. I don't know. That's what everyone called it. I said something about trip hop, and he really does not. He does not like that. He does not like that at all. So there was a quick exchange of emails, and you know, because to him it was something.
It's cool though that people say it. It's really cool.
Well, this is the thing, and it's like you said. Once you've given your music out, then people do what they will with it, and they, you know, if they call you this, they call you folk. You're in the folk section. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and people, and to be honest, like they want a quick and easy word to vaguely describe something.
Yeah.
And you know, the word trip hop got made up by someone, and then it was a useful thing to use to describe a bunch of music that had a certain thing in common. But yeah, it's not ideal.
Yeah,
it's
no,
not
he was.
ideal
He
in terms of labeling
described
stuff.
trip hop as London wanker music. So I did a quick re-edit of the beginning of the podcast and set it up again, and we're all friends and everything's good again.
But it's true that certain. It's interesting, as an artist, how to sort of be okay with what people call you and how they see you. It's not always something that's in your control. I mean, it usually isn't something in your control. Usually it's totally out of your control.
Well, speaking of that sort of thing, the track I didn't know before is Napoleon by Ani DiFranco. So I've just listened to that for the first time this morning. A really intense little tune, and I think it sounds like she's pretty cross at some people in the record industry. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's, for me, it's like she knows what the music industry is about, and she's got this sort of person or friend or whatever who sort of claimed to know as well, but then went down this sort of dubious path anyway, and then regrets it afterwards. I don't know. I mean, there's more to it than that anyway.
Yeah.
But like in the sort of story that I interpreted as a teenager was kind of that, and just this, the idea that people just want celebrity and bigger and more and as much exposure as possible. They just want fame, and so I feel like that is what she's saying when she's saying that everyone's a Napoleon. They all want to just sort of
take over the world,
turn up and conquer everything. But yeah, this song, basically, let me try and get back to my memory of this song. My sister went to Canada when she finished her was it after her foundation year at art college? Anyway, she went travelling in Canada and came back with quite a lot of amazing music, and one of the CDs she came back with was this album by Ani DiFranco called Dilate. And I wonder how old I was at the time. I must have been about 15 or something. It just totally blew my mind. Like, the fact that there was this woman being so bold and, like, writing in such an honest and often quite aggressive, but not in in a necessarily aggressive way, and so articulate and so... I don't know, it was exactly what my 15-year-old self needed. It was so inspiring, and I feel like this song in particular was the first one I got into, and I don't know how to put this. It's going to be a total anticlimax, sorry, but like the guitar sound on this track blew my mind.
Yeah, and it is an interesting sound.
And I've never got over it, and I've always wanted every guitar to always sound like this ever since. Like this is the guitar sound that I want every guitar to sound like, and I just loved it. I loved it, and she really changed my life in terms of what was possible being a woman in the world and in music. Like the stuff she talks about, her sense of humour, her sense of like anger, her sense of like what's right and wrong, and like the way she talks about sexuality and gender and like so many other political things. Oh my God, it really opened a lot of windows for me as a teenager. And then I subsequently spent sort of the next sort of 2 years of my life learning to play all of her songs, finding out about her whole back catalogue before.
And so it really was something it really shaped the way you started making your music then, I guess.
Yeah, because I basically learned to play guitar off her. Like, it's because of Ani DiFranco that I don't know the names of any chords and that I retune my guitar too much. Like, and I use a capo all the time. Like, basically it's her fault. I can't play the guitar properly.
Curse you, Ani DiFranco.
And the next time that I saw you, you were larger than life. Yeah, you came and you conquered, and you were doing alright. You had an army of soups behind you.
like I totally learnt to play guitar from her. Just like it was early internet days, you'd go to the library and spend ages trying to find tablature to print off.
Yeah.
And like just finding out about all of the different ways she tuned her guitars. Like her guitar playing is phenomenal. It's insane. And I sort of get that for some people it's too, especially these days, for some people it's too sort of, I don't know, American shouty lady or something. I don't know. But it's so important. Like, it's so important. And there's so many people now that are only just starting to talk about the things that she was talking about throughout her whole career. And I just can't stress how important she was to me, but also is to songwriting and feminism and the music industry, because it's not just her writing and that was incredibly sort of revolutionary, but she just started her own record label and like was a real trailblazer in terms of artists owning their own music and doing things in a way that meant they were the ones getting paid for their music rather than, you know, big labels or everyone else, basically.
Well, I was going to ask you, you know, you've managed to keep your independence. I mean, maybe that's because, you know, they were never going to send you off to Hawaii and film a video by the side of the pool or whatever, have you at the TV Choice Awards or anything like that. But I mean, you kept your independence really well, and what's great about that is over those 20 years, you know, your identity and the way you come across, it feels really unsullied. I don't know if you ever have felt the pressure from the industry like that, but your sound certainly has never felt like it was being contorted from the outside.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I feel like as the years have passed and the sort of and my career, for want of a slightly better word,
you can call it that. It's fine.
Has like progressed. You do end up working with people and working with record labels and working with managers, and so like, and if you're lucky enough, which I feel like I've been lucky enough, they're totally brilliant and respect you and are the right people to work with and sort of know their trade and have the skills to do what I personally don't have the skills to do in terms of like existing in this sort of slightly weird thing that's called the music industry. But as a result of that, there are compromises to make, because I don't want to make other people's working life difficult. So yeah, there's always going to be a slight sort of compromise from time to time in terms of what I would have chosen to do personally and what is just helpful to the team of people that are working really hard to make it a sustainable, well, basically for it to be sustainable employment for my band members and for me. So there's no sort of escaping the ecosystem of the industry, and it's not a particularly healthy one, but I think you can make an effort to, you know, deal with it as decently and in a way that is comfortable with you as much as possible. I mean, and then there's people like sort of Jonathan Richman who are just totally brilliant and don't have email and don't have a mobile phone. You can only contact him through a manager or through a fax machine and a landline. But at the same time, not everyone is Jonathan Richman, so not everyone can do that. Like, you can't. He's a complete legendary genius.
Yeah, and he's just been crossed off the list of possible guests on What Goes Round, because we wouldn't. I don't fancy doing the interview via fax. That would be tricky.
No, he's got a landline. It's fine.
Oh right, that's okay. Do you know, Kraftwerk used to have a phone in the studio in Dusseldorf, and it didn't ring. And what they would do is if they actually wanted to speak to someone, they'd say, "Ring at this time," and we'll just pick it up. So
ring. Oh, brilliant!
So
ring exactly.
No ring. If you didn't ring exactly the right time, that was it. They weren't going to talk to you.
That's so great. That's really good.
In control. But I like the way it feels like you've built a little family of people around you, and you obviously care for that family and want to, give that stable employment. And I mean, obviously, a lot of responsibility then comes back onto you, because you're the one who's writing the songs and putting the things out there. So
Yeah.
it must weigh a little bit on you, I should think.
I mean, it does. Like, I feel like, in terms of the stuff I'm writing, I know that I just will have to write what I write, and I can't change that. But it's true that then there are other choices in how things are set up or how things are promoted or whatever. That, I am aware of the knock-on effect to other people's sort of livelihood. But then, it's the eternal freedom and responsibility death grip. Like you can't actually have freedom without without responsibility in equal measure, sort of thing. So it's there's always choices to make, and you just have to hope. You have to sort of communicate with everyone. Communication is key, I think, and just try and hope that everyone is okay about the choices you make and knows that they can do something else. If they feel like they need to do something else.
I mean, you've grown very organically, it feels to me, like, and the good thing about that is when you grow like that, people tend to stay with you. It doesn't become like a fly-by-night thing. So I'm sure you've had fans that have been following you around for the last 20 years now. And
yeah, maybe. I mean, there are people, it's true, there are people that come to the gig and say, I first heard your song on this compilation or whatever, which was, a release before I'd released any albums. And so, it's really amazing when that happens, actually, because I feel like what I do now is so different to what I did back then. But it's very nice. It definitely feels like it's been a sort of slow fermentation process. But not that I've been sort of monitoring it. Like, it's just totally in looking back. Like, as far as I'm concerned, it's always been fine. Like, wherever I've been, I'm like sort of, this is great. This is a good place to be. And then like another album comes along and things shift a little bit, or there's a few more people that come to the gigs, or the conditions are a bit different.
Well, I always wonder.
And then I think that's fine too.
I always wonder with this sort of these quieter sort of bands that rely on the intimacy and the acoustic instruments and all that kind of thing. I mean, how, as it's grown and got bigger and bigger, and you've ended up, as you say, playing loads of folk festivals. I think you're at Glastonbury later this week, aren't you?
No, not me. Not this year.
No.
Rosie is, but not me.
Oh, right, okay.
But hopefully next year.
Fingers crossed with that. But how does it feel as an artist? What's the difference, and which do you prefer? Playing a nice little folk club in a basement in Soho with like 80 people in, or playing a festival where you're looking out on thousands maybe, and and some of them are just off doing their own thing, queuing for hot dogs or whatever it is they want to do, and yet some of them are right in front of you and into it. Which is more satisfying or desirable for you?
I don't think either of them are better or worse than the other. I feel like, also I say either, there's obviously loads of other situations in between those as well, like the whole sort of spectrum of gigs you can do in terms of number of people, or like smallness of space, bigness of space. Like, I mean, I just feel like they're all so important and teach you so much. I love doing the whole range. Like, I've just done this sort of solo tour of record shops for the release of the album, and I loved it. Like, it does me so much good to play solo and to sort of work different muscles in terms of like how you perform the songs, like, and how you make them interesting, because sometimes it's easy to feel a bit like they're boring without the rest of the band or something. I just feel like it's really important to have all of the different gig experiences. And then there's like, occasionally you'll find yourself in a total sort of open mic situation and people aren't very impressed, they're not listening, they don't like it, and you're just like, oh yeah, this is really important. Like, it all depends on the context. Like, you could just plonk someone at an open mic night, you could plonk, so I'm trying to think of someone really famous now, I can't think of anyone. And if no one knows who they are, then they might not go down very well. Like, it's a good reminder, it's a good reality reminder. But what was the classic? Sorry, what were you
I was just thinking there was a classic moment where they sent Badly Drawn Boy to busk outside King's Cross Station when he was kind of at his peak.
Yeah.
And I think he made about £2. And it was
Exactly.
He was like kind of, well, it's fine. It's this is okay.
It's the context. But also, I was thinking about that the other day because I had all this sort of. I had this battery amp with me, and I was on the trains and stuff, and I was like, I could actually just stop here and just busk. I could just do some busking, but from what I have, anyone who's ever done busking knows that people don't appreciate it when you're playing your own songs. They just want
something they know.
The big hits. They want the Beatles. They want Bowie. They want the bangers. And so, but also, I wonder if like Badly Drawn Boy was at the peak of his career, people probably recognised him and thought, "Oh, great! Look, he's playing some songs outside, brilliant." But they didn't think he's a musician that's earning his living like this.
Yeah, I suppose so. That's the other side of it, isn't it? So, well, why should I give him £5? I've got to go and buy a sandwich and get to work.
Yeah, but I feel like it just teaches you so much, all the different gig conditions, whether it's like busking, open mic, Glastonbury main stage. It's a really good lesson in it, sort of adapting to the situation and finding a way to connect with the audience through the different obstacles that each situation sort of offers up.
Well, I think that's a tremendously healthy attitude, and I'm going to live in hope now that I can go down to Bristol Town Centre one day and see you busking. That'd be marvellous.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it happens one day because it's good. I like it. I like a bit of busking.
Well, listen, Kate, it's been lovely talking to you, and I hope you're all right there in Paris as another siren goes
another
past.
Another emergency vehicle.
It's a bit of a running joke in what goes around that we have a glorious selection of background noises. We've had the builders in smashing up Debs's flat while we've been trying to record stuff, all sorts of things going on. So a little bit of sirens won't do us any harm.
Okay,
thank you so much for talking to us today. It's been really interesting.
It's been a really nice chat. It's been interesting for me too because this is sort of how I learn about stuff too. So thank you.
Oh, well, that's nice to know. Best of luck with the album. It's absolutely brilliant, and I'm sure you're going to do really well with it. So thank you very much for coming and talk to us.
Thanks for having me. See you again.
Cheers, Kate.
Friend, when you needed a friend, heart hanging gold torn again, step ladder got down again, light bulb life changing, found a friend, shovel the bones away, love human remains remain, realizing it progress made, claw sanity back again.
And if you enjoyed that particular show, then spread that joy around. Find someone who likes a bit of the music and likes a nice bit of chat, and pass what goes around over to them and let them enjoy this wonderful show in the same way that you did. Like, subscribe, make friends with strangers. What goes around?
Will we manage not